Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Story Hour. I'm your host, Daniel Marcus. My esteemed co-host and partner in narrative crime is Laura Blackwell. And I hope that you're all healthy and safe and taking care of yourselves and your loved ones, regardless of pandemic status. We started Story Hour during lockdown last year in an effort to just experience great writing. Really, I just initially kicked it off. I just wanted a place for me and my friends to read our stuff to each other and invite other people along to listen. And it kind of grew and built, and it's taken on a life of its own. And we've really managed to, I think, build some community in a difficult and challenging time, and going to continue when times get less challenging. So happy to be here. Story Hour turns to an ancient and time-honored form of entertainment, which is we're sitting around the fire telling each other lies. So every week we've got two authors, about 30 minutes each, doing exactly that. No Q&A at the end of the stories generally. It's not expressly forbidden. Nothing really is around here, but we're all about the fiction. We're all about the stories. Minimal self-promotion, although we're all writers, so we expect a little bit of that, and that's fine. And every week, we offer a couple of brief PSAs. We've asked the readers to suggest them, and this is suggestions as to if you're in a position to help others, if you're fortunate enough to be able to help others in your communities or outside your communities. These are some suggestions as to how you might do that. So our readers tonight are Nicole J. LeBoeuf and Lora Gray. Nicole is reading tonight for Rocky Mountain House Rabbit Rescue, a Colorado-based nonprofit org that seeks loving homes for the house rabbits in their shelter, rescues house rabbits in need, and supports current rabbit owners through their shop and their classes. As a local chapter of the House Rabbit Society, they're dedicated to these goals, and they strive to educate the public about these often misunderstood companion animals, rmhrr.org. Lora is reading tonight for Outright Action International. Outright Action International fights for the human rights for LGBTIQ people everywhere. Outright works at the international, regional, and national levels to research, document, defend, and advance human rights for LGBTIQ people around the world. Outright is the only such organization that has a permanent presence to advocate at the United Nations headquarters in New York for progress for LGBTIQ people. They have a major stake at the UN on human rights and hold special consultative status there, which allows them to bring to light concerns of LGBTIQ people globally at this very important world forum. So that's, we will paste the URLs for both of those orgs in the chat. So please check them out. And again, if you're in a position to help, please support both of those entities. It's outrightinternational.org. So we're going to start the program. We're going to start with Lora. Lora Gray is a non-binary speculative fiction writer and poet from Northeast Ohio. They've been published in Uncanny, Flash Fiction Online, Pseudopod, and Asimov's, among other places. Lora is a member of the Science Fiction Writers of America, a graduate of Clarendon West, and a recipient of the Ohio Arts Council's Individual Excellence Award in Fiction Writing. Lora is also a dance instructor, choreographer, and occasionally moonlights as an illustrator, a Renaissance person. You can find Lora online at lora-gray.com and on Twitter at Lora J. Gray, Gray. The floor is yours, Lora.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. This is going to be so much fun tonight. I will be reading 3 stories tonight, so 3 flashlings of fiction. And I did not plan it this way, but all 3 of the stories that I have involve transformation. So 3 stories of transformation for you all tonight. And the first story I'm going to read is Water Like Air, which originally was published in Flash Fiction Online. Here we go. Water Like Air. She begins in the pond at the edge of Tom Hatcher's cornfield, where the stalks drag needy fingers across a summer moon. She digs one toe, slender and clear as glass, into the murky bottom and begins to spin. Round and round, faster and faster, until sludge climbs up her body and binds to the translucent armature of her calves and thighs. When the mud covers her fully, she heaves herself out of the water and onto the shore. Elodia closes her eyes. She remembers the photograph in Tom's kitchen, the farmhouse with its slanted walls and bowing roof, his wife, wrinkled and smiling in front of it, pale hair, blue gingham dress, clinging to sagging breasts and a fleshy, dimpled waist, looking loved and happy and wanted. Elodia scoops mud from the lip of the pond and begins to sculpt that smile and those breasts onto herself. She doesn't bother with the gingham dress, but the extra weight still trembles her delicate body as she stands. Her sister, Talia, would have laughed if she saw her then. Alone and draped in mud, Talia doesn't understand. She lures velvet-skinned boys so easily into the deep of her lake. The young ones, the beautiful ones, the ones who walk barefoot and alone in moonlight. Talia calls to them, and they paddle unthinking out to meet her. "Who are you?" they ask, entranced. Talia only laughs and winds around them, warm and slippery and sweet. She teases them into confused pleasure, lust quick and fragile as moth wings. She hooks her glassy fingers into them and drags them down. She pins them beneath the surface until the kicking and thrashing finally stops, quick and clean. But Elodia has always been a murky thing, and her feet and mud are heavy as she walks through the cornfield toward Tom Hatcher's farmhouse. Tom Hatcher doesn't believe in ghosts. He believes in living things, in growing things. But one evening in July, 6 months after his Meredith has passed, he thinks he sees her in the pond at the edge of his cornfield. It's the damn cough that forces him to stop, that heavy dampness in his chest that won't quite dry out, that jitters him out of his sleep and follows him like a ragged shadow wherever he goes. If his Meredith was there, she'd hold his hand as he tried to squeeze oxygen into his lungs. She'd wrap her arm around his shoulders when that shadow grew teeth and loomed beside him and murmured, "Not long now, not long now." He's panting and wiping cold sweat from his lip when he catches movement in the pond at the edge of the field. A strange ripple shudders through the center of the water, and there, a girl-shaped something, slender and clear as glass, skims the surface of the water. He calls, "Hello?" But nobody answers. He hobbles to the pond to find her, but the glass girl is nowhere to be seen, and the water is quiet. Meredith had loved to swim when she was young. Tom still remembers the way she dove, supple and smiling, into the water, sunburned skin, long limbs, gentle laughter. That night, Tom dreams of his dead wife. Meredith is a freckled Esther Williams in a turquoise pool, splashing and laughing and darting away quick as a minnow. He can't catch her, but he falls in love with the curve of her bare shoulder, the gentle slope of her back, the fine red plump of her lower lip. The next morning, cough lurking in his chest, Tom opens the screen door and sees muddy footprints leading away from the farmhouse. He follows them to the pond. Tom Hatcher doesn't believe in ghosts. But tonight, he sits in the kitchen beneath the photograph of Meredith, the one taken before the cancer began creeping into her bones, and he waits for her to reappear, clear as glass, young and beautiful, hair damp from swimming. Her freckles will crinkle when she smiles, and she will gather him against her breast, cool and lovely as water. It is midnight when Elodia emerges from the cornfield and lumbers through the abandoned marigolds to the farmhouse. There, on the other side of the screen door, she sees Tom hunched at the kitchen table, fingers steepled beneath an unshaven chin. Wallpaper peels behind him, yellow flowers on nicotined paisley, a mountain of dishes slumps in the sink. Above him, in her blue gingham dress, is the photo of his wife, a snapshot of flesh and blood that never needed mud to be beautiful. "Hello," Elodia says. Tom turns, startled, breath hitching around a cough, wheezing and ragged at the sight of her. His fingers curl tight around the edge of the table as his lungs snatch hopelessly at the air. Elodia can hear the water inside him, the slow, wet smother. She waits for the inevitable question, but when Tom is finally able to speak, he doesn't ask, "Who are you?" Instead, he crosses the kitchen. He opens the screen door like a secret. He whispers, "Oh, I knew you would come." His face is soft as he caresses Elodia's cheek, and she closes her eyes, imagines tender hands sinking through the shell separating them, his touch heavy as water, gentle as air. She imagines a life of sunlight and gingham dresses, delicate mornings, a fragile hand folded over hers. She imagines a body growing old beside her and wanting her even as she begins to wither and fade. Elodia opens her eyes. She smiles like a wife might smile. She pretends her heart isn't aching as she folds her arm around Tom's shoulders and guides him gingerly to the kitchen floor. She pretends the love in his eyes is for her as his breath slows, as the sun rises, as the shadows lengthen, and she whispers, "Not long now, not long now." And
Wow. That was superb. Thank you.
oh, thank you. So my next story that I'm going to read tonight was actually originally published in Norwestcon's program guide a few years ago. They were generous enough to give me one of my scholarships to Clarion West, and so they asked me to contribute a story, and this is that story. It's called Flight. My mama's eyes fly long before she does. While Nathan plays monster trucks beside the backyard shed, I watch her. She sits where she always sits in the hour between breakfast and her shift at the Circle K, in the lawn chair beside the back porch, skin suctioned to frayed green plastic, her head full of curlers, cigarette a column of ash between her fingers. I can tell she isn't here. Not really. Her gaze drifts steadily up and away from the gap-toothed tilt of our house, past strip malls and the broad black palms of Walmart parking lots. In her head, she is flying. She returns when we get scraped knees or splinters or ticks. The ticks, she burns away. She tries to be careful, but inevitably one of us gets singed. "There's no helping it," she says. "Lita, be a good girl and hand me my lighter. You can't just pull him out." Last year, when Mama was at work, Nathan got a tick in his bare foot, and I tried to yank it out. The body broke away in my fingers, leaving a small, dark lump near the crease of his toe. I imagine the tick still trying to see the world through the thick custard of my little brother's flesh, startled, dislocated, bodiless. I dug it out with a kitchen knife, and Nathan had to get a tetanus shot. Mama didn't scold me or make Nathan wear shoes after that, but she did give me one of her lighters. Nathan has our mama's scales. They crawl up the insides of his arms, layer upon layer of rough, red skin that settles fitfully into the creases of his elbows. Eczema, psoriasis, hives, the story changes depending on who Mama is talking to. I don't have Mama's scales. I have her eyes, green eyes. Distant eyes, eyes set so deep they get lost in photographs, irises so fat they smother the whites. Lizard eyes, Nikki Ackerman once called them. I've been Lita the lizard at school ever since. Granddad had those eyes too. I've seen the Polaroid, a tall man with wisps of hair clinging to a round skull, narrow shoulders and a crooked tie, one long arm draped around a miniature version of Mama. They are smiling, but their eyes are nothing but dark smudges on pale faces. Granddad disappeared before I was born. On summer nights after Nathan is asleep, we sit on the back porch together, kitchen light frizzing golden through Mama's hair while she drinks her beer and whispers about Granddad and his postcard places, Chicago, Miami, Havana, how he would look out the window and his eyes would fill with city lights, how one day Granddad left for work and never came back. Mama wraps an arm around me, and I imagine her drifting away like smoke or dandelion seeds or a balloon, her arm the string drifting like Granddad did away from home. I fold my hand over hers to anchor her. Her breath is beer sour when she kisses my cheek, when she tells me about a new friend in New York City. I tighten my hand. Mama first disappears on a Tuesday. It's 6:30. The light outside is gray, green, and stale. A thunderstorm warning crawls across the bottom of the TV screen, electric blue flickering over my hands as I braid and rebraid my hair. Mama hovers near the kitchen window, one hand floating limp and forgotten in soapy sink water, the other clutching a half-scrubbed pan. You'll make sure Nathan comes inside, won't you? She says. Her voice is as distant as her eyes. You want me to fetch him? I ask. My fingers tangle in my hair. It's supposed to storm. I don't like the way Mama's pupils yawn wide as she looks past her own reflection, her body poised as if at any moment she could spring through that glass and into the darkening sky, so I hurry. I find Nathan in his sandbox, green plastic turtle smiling stupidly up at me despite the earworms and silverfish wriggling between its broken toes. He's building a wall around himself. Mama wants you to come inside, I say, giving the turtle a tiny kick. Nathan ignores me, grabs a handful of dirty sand, slaps it higher onto his wall with pudgy fingers. Come on, it's gonna rain. I look back toward the house. He shoves a twig into the top of his wall, a crooked, flagless banner that cracks the sand beneath it. Thunder grumbles in the distance. Come on. I tug at Nathan's arm, his sand wall toppling as I drag him up and over it and toward the house. By the time I wrestle him inside, the sky is wicked dark. The TV is blue. Mama is gone. I call for her. I find the back door open and swinging. I call for her. I find her car still in the driveway. I call for her. I find one of her shoes abandoned beside the kitchen sink. I find the other one at the end of the driveway beside a pile of damp red scales already scattering in the wind. I begin collecting tricks. a trick to stop Nathan from whimpering, pillow forts, and a superhero mask made from newspaper, a trick for making dinner, spaghetti cooked in hot tap water and ketchup and salt, a trick to stop the shaking. I make plans to use the money in Mama's secret box to buy eggs, bread, milk. I practice calling taxis. Mama creeps through the back door 4 days later, smelling like fresh air and ozone and smoke, a bucket of fried chicken tucked under one arm, a bag of groceries in the other, a tiny Statue of Liberty for Nathan, a keychain for me, and I'm so sorry, and look, you already made lunch all by yourself, and don't hate me. I just had to leave. Oh God, please don't hate me. When she tugs Nathan, he sobs so hard his superhero mask bleeds newsprint over his cheeks. He's still clinging to her when Mama hugs me, but I'm stiff as lead, heavy as an anchor. Did you buy milk? I ask. We're out of milk. The guilt that swells over Mama's face doesn't feel good like I want it to. It's sour and sad, and I let myself sag against her, my face pressed against her neck. I hold onto her like I can tether her to us forever. Mama, why did you leave? Nathan asks. I couldn't help it, she says and trembles. I just couldn't help it. I don't want to do it. I won't do it ever again. But I know Mama's eyes. They've been drifting forever. And a week later, I begin finding scribbles on the backs of takeout menus and paper towels, airy doodles of skylines, notes and telephone numbers and addresses in Manhattan and Queens. And as Nathan slides back into the normalcy of summer, I become Mama's shadow, determined to keep her from drifting away again. As she makes dinner, as she walks to the bus stop, every night, pressed against her on the porch as she drinks and drinks. I stay awake until she stumbles inside and falls asleep, and maybe out of guilt, she lets me. Summer is clinging to the edge of August when I finally fall asleep before she does. The air is heavy, moths battering against the porch screen, and she kisses my forehead and tells me to be a good girl and go to bed. I clutch at her for a moment, but she presses me up and half carries me inside. The sound of a screen door closing punches me awake. I sit up. I look out my bedroom window. I see Mama, naked and standing in the moonlit grass. She raises her arms and her whole body shivers as if shaking off the thick Illinois summer, the nighttime bugs, the mosquitoes, the moths, the yellow glow of the kitchen, the crooked shadow of our house. I watch the old scales on her arms tumble away and new ones grow, shimmering over her arms, her neck and face. Her back quivers and wings spiral through her skin, dragon wings. Her body swells, large and powerful. Her face narrows into the kind of muzzle that was always meant to house eyes like ours. Fire flickers deep in her mouth. Smoke curls through her nostrils and into her eyes. And by the time I run outside, she's already flying high against the full moon. I don't call for her. Instead, I wake up Nathan. I gather the money from Mama's secret box and all the notes and addresses, and I call a cab that will take us to New York City. I have my Mama's eyes. I'm not going to let her fly alone. And thank you.
Really work.
Thank you. So one more, I've got my third story here. And this one was originally published in Pantheon Magazine's anthology, Gorgon's Stories of Emergence, that came out a couple of years ago. And this one is called The Wallflowers. When you open your eyes, the daisies are watching you. They droop beside the hospital window in the chipped blue vase that normally resides on the kitchen counter between the plastic surgery pamphlets and Meg's ceramic roosters. An artificial breeze stirs their petals, and you share a slow nod of solidarity, even though you are green and new, and they are beginning to wilt. When was the last time anyone watered them? When was the last time Meg visited you? 2 days? 3? You try to picture her, to remember the angle of her eyes or the way her mouth curls at the corners when she's upset, like she's tugging the emotion back and down into her throat. But you can't. Her face is as blurry as an unfocused photograph. Maybe it's because of the morphine drip. Maybe it's the chlorophyll, or maybe it's because Meg keeps changing and you just can't puzzle her together in your head anymore. Meg abandoned the natural curve of her cheek on her 35th birthday. She sucked away the soft pillow of her tummy as a gift to herself too. Then it was the lavender eyes, then the stiletto implants, her newly spiked feet punching dents in the bedroom floor. Last month, she got Medusa extensions. You've been bitten a dozen times by her hair. Who knows what else she's had done since you last saw her? Will you even recognize her when she finally returns? If she returns. She hadn't really wanted you to do this, after all. The hospital gown crinkles as you carefully unfurl the leaves that were once your hands. You've traded bone for plant fiber the way Meg traded hair for snakes, and the long stalk beneath your hospital gown seems at once frighteningly foreign and gloriously flexible. The doctors say it will take some getting used to, but there are places for you to heal and adjust after you're discharged. Therapy gardens to take root in, transitional arboretums, rehabilitation hothouses, and carefully tended conservatories with mindfulness coaches, green places, quiet places with fields full of people just like you to silence the noise of never belonging. You've yearned for quietness for so long. You shrank into classroom corners as a child. You faded into dorm doorways at university. You barricaded yourself behind potted ferns at your first office job. You tried to hide behind the decorations at your wedding reception, terrified that one of the glittering fashionistas Meg worked with, or the endless parade of power couples joined literally at the hip, would notice you and sneer. How boring, they'd think. How plain, how passé. Meg smoothed her hands over your face and sighed as if you were a precious, hopeless tragedy. Let me dye your hair at least, she said. You'll be so much happier without all that gray. You'll see, everybody will notice. But you didn't want to be noticed. After 13 years of marriage, Meg still doesn't understand that. Even when she finally, grudgingly, accepted the reality of your first and only surgery, she said, "But why a daisy? They're just so cheap. Why not a lily? Oh, or an orchid, something exotic, something really beautiful." Meg's powder room is a paper garden of beautiful people and tips on how to become them. Their photos and magazine articles clipped and taped to every wall and mirror. Cheekbones that wow, be a real tigress in the bedroom. This year's top 10 sexiest plastic surgeries, hydro hips and diamond fingertips. Every surface is overgrown with images of lilac eyes and rosebud breasts, noses carefully sculpted into Eiffel Towers, chins carved into the pyramids at Giza, swatches of synthetic skin in every conceivable shade, fresh colors screaming to be seen and loved. On the hospital windowsill, the neglected daisy's petals have begun to wither. Meg brought them out of obligation. You know this now. The daisies are there because the surgical pamphlet said it was necessary visual stimulation for a successful transition. Meg hasn't been back to tend them. The last time you saw her, she didn't say she loved you. You reach toward the daisies with a slowness you couldn't have fathomed in your flesh and bone body. Your pace itself is a brand new form of camouflage. The nurse doesn't seem to notice the dreamy uncoiling of leaves when she changes your IV. The doctor takes your vitals without mentioning it. As you continue to move, unnoticed and gloriously slow, courage swells through you. By the time you brush against the nearest flower, it is afternoon, and the daisies are tipping their faces toward the light. Leaf to leaf, you connect. There is a sameness in that touch, a recognition, a swell of joy, and you imagine a garden stretching on forever, every flower delicate and identical in their quiet companionship. Tenderly, you curl what was once your hand around the daisies. Together, you turn your faces to the sun. And thank you all so much.
I don't know if you noticed, but some of us actually started turning towards the story and closing our eyes like we were daisies.
That's amazing. That's so
It
cool.
was really cool.
I love that we managed to get 3 separate stories in. I feel like we've just been on a
Mhm.
guided tour of like different stations of the human heart or something. It's just really lovely work. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. It was so lovely. Thank you so much.
It's always kind of neat to just pause between authors here, take a deep breath, sort of take in what we just heard. Oh man. Okay. All right, onward. Nicole J. LeBoeuf is a New Orleans writer of short speculative fiction and poetry. Her work most recently appears in The Future Fire, Departure Mirror Quarterly, and Dreams and Nightmares, and is forthcoming in Apex magazine. She also releases weird flash fiction 4 times a month on Patreon. She currently lives in Boulder, Colorado, where she'd be skating roller derby with the Boulder City Bombers if there weren't a pandemic on. And just for future reference, her roller derby handle is Fleur de Beast. She cooks, spins yarn, knits socks, and has recently rediscovered her stash of New Orleans-themed cross-stitch projects. So Nicole, welcome to Story Hour, and over to you.
Thank you. And the promised bunny did arrive. His name is Holland, and he got the treats he came for, and he's on his way. Thank you so much for having me tonight. I have 2 stories to share, one of them short and one of them very short. And we'll start with the very short one. This story was included in episode 431 of Cast of Wonders, the young adult speculative fiction podcast. It was narrated wonderfully by Adam Pracht, and that is a tough act to follow, but here goes. They did publish it with a content note for grief. The Soup Witch's Funeral Dinner. One morning, late March, Sammy Taylor visited the Soup Witch. He hadn't planned to. He was busy wrestling with his father's crankiest sewing machine when the good smell from the Soup Witch's cauldron yanked him out the door by his nose. Sammy came to the Soup Witch's door a little resentful and a whole lot hungry. The Soup Witch handed him a bowl and a spoon, led him through to the backyard, and ladled him up what was in the cauldron. One sip chased resentment away. Sammy ate until all the soup was gone. When he was done, the Soup Witch said, "Sammy, I need to train up a successor, and it looks like it's going to be you." "Why me?" "Because that was a successor finding soup. You're who came and ate it, so you're who I'm gonna train. Got a problem with that? Well, it beat a future of mending the whole town's trousers. Besides, after years of Sammy, come here, and Sammy, do this, he was mighty attracted to the prospect of getting to order everyone else around for a change. So he agreed to become the soup witch's apprentice. Lessons weren't very interesting at first. They were all about making soup. Sammy had expected soup, it was right there in the job title, but so was witch, and he didn't seem to be learning anything witchy. When do I get to do magic? Not till you got a handle on the mirepoix, said the soup witch, and the sofrito, and the Holy Trinity. You want to do magic, you got to learn how to cook. Now dice these carrots. He had to learn how to build fires for boiling and for simmering. He had to chop wood and stack it to age. He had to learn the names, parts, and uses of hundreds of plants, animals too. He had to render the fats and oils for cooking with and for seasoning the cauldron. Sometimes the smoke got so thick, Sammy could hardly see over the next door neighbor's fence. But nobody ever came round to complain. Nobody came round at all, not unless they needed a cure. He didn't thank you, Sammy observed one day after the latest patient went home. It's a thankless task, the soup witch agreed. What can cure can kill, and they know it. So why do we do it? Because we can, said the soup witch. Because it needs doing. By the height of summer, the soup witch started to teach Sammy how to listen to the cauldron. It wants something. It'll give you a nudge. Halfway to chicken dumpling, you'll get the idea for beef barley. You'll reach for anise, come up with angelica. But only if you learn how to listen. How does the cauldron know? The soup witch shrugged. How do birds know when to fly? But why should it get to decide who gets cures and who doesn't? Why should you? Sammy did start to hear that cauldron. A little at first, and then a whole lot more. So the soup witch had him tend more of the patients. He sat by while they ate their soup, and if they wanted to talk, he listened. That kind of listening took some learning, too. Sometimes they said the kind of things you only say to your doctor or your priest. Sometimes they just told him they were proud of him. One evening, late September, Sammy froze with his hand over the cauldron. He'd gone where it had nudged him just like usual, only the pinch of this was nightshade, and the bit of that was angel's trumpet, and he'd already put it in. He'd made a soup for killing. Its treacherous good smell was even now reeling its victim in. The soup witch put a hand on his shoulder. It's all right, Sammy. That soup's for me. Sammy's heart went pang and his throat went tight. Why you? What that cauldron can't cure tends to kill long and ugly. The long part's just about over. The ugly part's getting close. She held out her bowl. That soup there'll be a kindness. Killing the soup witch was the saddest thing Sammy had ever done, but he did it. He ladled her up what was in the cauldron, and he watched her eat until all the soup was gone. Sammy, said the soup witch, you're going to have to help me to my bed. He just about had to carry her there. He tucked her in, and she squeezed his hand tight. You take care of them now. They need you. They never loved me, but they like you. They got no fear of you. So they'll let you take care of them, now that you know how. Then she went to sleep, and she never woke up again. Sammy sat there all night long. At dawn, he let go of her poor cold hand and wondered what came next. She needed burying, but he couldn't think clear how to start. So he started making soup because he knew how to make soup. The smell grew rich and strong until even Sammy himself longed for a taste. The doorbell rang. Sammy came through the house and opened the door. There, on the soup witch's porch and in the soup witch's front yard and overflowing into the street were their neighbors and almost neighbors and people from all over town. Sammy's friends and family were there, and everyone Sammy had tended, and everyone the soup witch had ever cured too, everyone who was still alive and still in town and could make their own 2 feet or someone else's take them over. And everyone had brought a bowl and a spoon. "Come on through," Sammy told them. "Soup's on." And that was the soup witch's funeral dinner. And Sammy thought, maybe they did love her a little, after all. Thank
Wow.
you.
I love the soup witch. That was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This next story was included in the anthology Community of Magic Pens, whose cover I just have to show off because it's just so happy and wonderful.
Nice.
It was edited by E.D.E. Bell and published by Athos Arts in May of last year, and it has the distinction, this story, of dropping the only F-bomb in the whole collection, which I can offer to leave out if anyone needs me to, but if not, off we go.
I'm the wrong person.
Right on. Always makes sense to check in case anyone brought some tender ears along with them in the next room. Content note published in the anthology says off-page attempted assault, nonviolent death. It's called One Story, Two People. Rachel is 10 years old when the fountain pen wakes her up in the middle of the night. It's always had an irritatingly scratchy stroke. By the glow of her old Winnie the Pooh nightlight, which no one but Erin is allowed to know she still has, she watches the pen scrawl its noisy way across the big sheet of butcher paper covering her desk for precisely these occasions. She does not, N-O-T, not, go over to read what it's writing. If she's told Erin once, she's told her 1,000 times, no late night scripts when they've got an important test the next day. Next morning, Rachel cuts the message out and brings it to school. 5 minutes before first bell, she shoves it in Erin's face. "What does this even mean?" "Hello to you too," Erin replies coolly. She reads the message. "What time is it when you are now?" "Huh, dunno, wasn't me." "Well, who in the world else could it be? You loaned your pen to someone without telling me? Or you think there's a third one out there?" "I don't know, not on your life, and maybe?" Erin thinks a moment, then brightens. "Maybe it was me, future me, trying to figure out which past you she's got a hold of. You should answer her, I mean me." "Get real." "The realist. It's like I keep telling you. The pens work via some kind of quantum entanglement nonsense. Ergo, time travel. QED. Erin studies the paper more closely. "Future me has nice handwriting, though. Can I borrow this? I want to practice." Rachel had become fascinated with fountain pens the summer before 5th grade. She was delighted when, as the final stop on their annual back-to-school shopping expedition, Mom took her to the fancy stationery store on the west end of downtown. Rachel could choose any pen she liked, Mom said, so long as it was reasonably priced. Thankfully, the one Rachel fell in love with cost just this side of what Mom considered reasonable. It was big and chunky, what fountain pens online called cigar-shaped, in a deep midnight blue spangled with stars. Rachel wanted to fill it with indigo ink and write poems about space with it. The elderly lady running the register that day pulled out a bottle of ink, black, oh well, and a scratch pad so Rachel could try the pen out. Then she reached into a drawer and pulled out another pen, identical in design but bearing obvious signs of wear and tear. "Special offer," she said. "Buy one, get one free." Rachel blinked. "Really?" The lady nodded, smiling. "Oh, wow, that would be awesome." "Then you'd have a spare," Mom said, "just in case you lost one." "Mom, there is no way I'm going to lose something this cool." "Of course not, honey. Maybe you can give one to your little friend at school. Her name is Erin." Rachel rolled her eyes, then grinned. And I bet she'll love it. Thanks, Mom. The lady behind the counter had been observing this mother-daughter interaction benignly. And thank you for giving it a good home, she said. I couldn't sell it on its own, given its, shall we say, less than pristine condition, but I know for a fact that its previous owner treated it very well. Home again, Rachel wasted no time filling both pens' converters from the bottle of Bleu de Profondeur ink Mom had let her pick out. Deep blue, the lady behind the counter had translated, like the night sky between the stars. Rachel took out a spiral notebook and began to write down that very sentence. She'd only got 3 words in when the second pen stood itself upright and also began to write, echoing every line and scribble she'd just scrawled. Rachel stared as it worked its way from the capital L through the final T in night, then lay gently back down next to the 3 words it had written on the desk's polished maple finish. Oh, crap, muttered Rachel. She rushed to the bathroom for something to clean up with. She'd intended the pens to be a surprise for Erin when they saw each other on the first day of school. Erin could have the brand new one, and Rachel would keep its second-hand twin. But after this development, the news couldn't wait. She gave Erin a call. So you're saying these are like cell phones, except they're pens? Huh, how does that work? How else? Magic. Erin made a game show buzzer noise. Wrong answer. Try again with science. Oh, you want science? When school starts on Tuesday, we are going to do all the science with these pens. And they did. Just as Rachel had hoped, Erin was scientist enough not only to believe what was happening in front of her eyes, but also to devise multiple experiments. Like, how far from each other can they be for it to work? What if you're holding the pen too tight when it receives a message or it's got its cap on? Does there have to be ink in them for it to work? Rachel, quickly growing bored with Erin's methodical testing at recess, suggested that they just start using the pens and see. In the weeks that followed, they passed notes to each other in class and between classrooms. They gossiped late at night across the distance between their houses. Sometimes they even did their homework together. When Erin's family went to Florida for the holiday break, Rachel didn't have to wait for Erin's postcard to arrive. She already knew what it said. Erin was the one who started calling it scripting, like texting, only in handwriting instead of on a phone. They never found a distance too great for the pens to cross, and if one was unable to write the message at the moment it was sent, it wrote it as soon as its keeper took it out to write with. But Rachel never got Erin to admit it was magic. It's got to do with quantum entanglement, Erin said. They've done experiments with subatomic particles. This is like that, only bigger. She sent Rachel links to articles full of phrases like relative simultaneity and spatiotemporal non-locality, which Rachel ignored. As far as she was concerned, magic was magic. You don't look a gift unicorn in the mouth. The mystery message arrives in early March of their 5th grade year. Rachel can't get it off her mind. One night soon after, she pulls out that scrap of butcher paper and writes down the current time and date. She leaves the cap off the pen for the rest of the night, even though she knows it'll mean fully flushing the nib the next day. During some gray pre-dawn hour, she wakes from vague nightmares to see still no further words added to the scrap of paper. On impulse, she opens a spiral notebook and writes, "Hey, Erin, what time is it when you are?" Within minutes, her pen transmits an answer. 5:30. What are you even doing up? Go back to bed. One night, when Rachel is 16, she parks her mother's car in the half-deserted lot of a dive bar on a highway known for beautiful views and not much else. Inside, 2 men are playing darts. The dartboards occupy the brightest spot in the whole dim place. The bartender stares absently at a football game on the TV. The only other person Rachel can see is a college-aged guy sitting alone at one of the tables placed haphazardly across the much-abused wood floor. He looks over at her briefly as she comes in, then goes back to glaring in the direction of the restrooms. The moment Rachel enters the ladies, she can hear Erin sobbing. "Erin, I'm here. I'm sorry it took so long. I left the house as soon as I got your script." Erin doesn't immediately come out of the stall, but Rachel hears her unlock it, so she goes in. She finds Erin perched like a bird on the toilet seat, hugging her knees to her chest and shaking. Rachel hugs her. "You okay, hun?" "Asshole stole my cell phone," Erin whispers. "No, don't try to get it back. Just take me home." As Erin gets to her feet, Rachel sees the message Erin wrote on the unfinished wood wall above the toilet paper dispenser. "He's scaring me. Please come. Rolling Rock Bar, Highway 93. Rachel reaches out a finger to touch the big block letters. The ink smudges. She looks down at her stained fingertip and then up at Erin in shock. Rachel's pen received the message fully 40 minutes ago. The hint of a smile crosses Erin's tear-streaked face. "Yeah," she says. "It worked." She does not explain further. When she gets home, Rachel pulls out the old scrap of butcher paper with the 2 messages on it. Now there are 3. The third says, "How about now?" It's in the same handwriting as the first, both of which resemble Erin's. Rachel remembers Erin admiring the handwriting. She also remembers she never gave Erin the message to take home and practice from. "It's the night I rescued you from that creep," Rachel writes. "And your first experiment with temporal non-local what's-this, I guess." She puts down the pen and nearly screams when it leaps right back up again. "Not first experiment," it scripts. "First success." "Well, thank goodness for that," Rachel writes back with a shaking hand. She underlines that several times. She leaves the cap off and keeps half an eye on the pen for the rest of the night, but nothing else appears to be forthcoming. Rachel stays in town for college. She takes classes in journalism and creative writing. She self-publishes chapbooks of poetry. She falls in and out of love with a series of what her mother calls nice enough boys. The 4th one she winds up marrying. He's got a stable job in residential real estate and a fondness for board games, which Rachel almost comes to share. Erin attends one prestigious STEM university after another, collecting degrees like some people collect stamps. She studies particle physics and quantum mechanics. "And it's all thanks to you and your quantum entangled pens," she scripts Rachel, who's congratulating her on winning yet another award. "One day, the world will know the truth behind the singularity, and your name and mine will be legend." "That and $5 will buy me a latte," Rachel scripts back. They don't script so much anymore. Texting is more convenient. Rachel's smartphone is content to beep once when a message arrives and then shut the heck up. It doesn't go on buzzing in her purse like a trapped housefly. It never needs its nib cleaned or its converter refilled. But sometimes Rachel scripts anyway, just to remind herself that the magic still works. Of course it works. Erin's making a name for herself from trying to figure out how it works. Not that she says as much to the national papers and scientific journals. Rachel reads each article faithfully. They're full of terms like relative simultaneity and spatiotemporal non-locality, which she understands little better than when she was 10. But she knows that Erin's drive to unlock the secrets of the universe is fueled by a miracle they share and can repeat any time they want. Sometimes Rachel pulls out that aging scrap of butcher paper and adds to its contents. "You're 43, and you just won yet another award named after some dead scientist," she writes. This time she gets a reply. "I know exactly when you mean. Keep in touch." Rachel is 63. The funeral is over. It was too soon, far too soon, and she's sick of hearing everyone say it. She's locked herself in her study, having escaped her husband's mostly abstract concern, and now she's paging through the scrapbook. Articles in national newspapers and scientific journals. relative simultaneity and spatiotemporal non-locality, scraps of paper covered in fountain pen ink, the words written in two distinct hands. A poem or two. Rachel can't bear reading them now. Finally, she reaches the pocket in the back cover of the scrapbook and pulls out a ragged piece of butcher paper nearly covered in short sentences. She lays it carefully on the desk, with her fountain pen across it, uncapped. Minutes pass. The pen doesn't move. Why should it? There's no more future errand to script her. Maybe there never was. In a sudden rage, Rachel snatches up the pen and writes, "You died last week. Your funeral was today. What the fuck time is it for you now?" Then she throws down the pen, heedless of the nib's point or of the ink spattering everything in a 5-foot radius. It's orange today. The bottle says Paleolithic amber. That is one of many details that just don't matter anymore. Rachel puts her head down on her arms on the desk. After a minute, the pen slowly rolls back toward the paper. 2 inches in front of Rachel's nose, it rises upright, then hesitates as if deliberating over a choice of words. "I'm not sure that's a question that makes sense anymore." "Go on," Rachel says, as though the pen could hear her. "Time is a place. Each moment is a room. It's like when we pass notes in school. We don't have to be in the same moment room to script each other." The pen runs right off the edge of the paper and onto the desk. Rachel reaches for more paper to slide under the nib. "There are rooms I can visit. There is a room where I have a stroke and die. There is a room where I beg you to come save me from an attempted kidnapping or worse. And there is a room where I give you a special offer on a second-hand pen, 2 for the price of 1. The pen pauses again while Rachel tries to tell herself she does not believe what it just wrote. "I took very good care of it, Rach. Thank you for taking such good care of me." Rachel snatches up the pen again and writes, half on the new page and half on the desk itself, "That was you? In the store with the second pen?" She can't remember the lady's face anymore. Grown-up strangers were all anonymous when she was 10. Just 1 pen. Just 1 story. And 2 people writing it. The words blur as Rachel's tears fall anew. She won't be able to bear to look at the paper again for hours. Just glancing in its direction will blind her with fresh sobs. But eventually, she will remember that fountain pens don't care who died recently. They want to be kept and set upright in their pen holders when not in use. And just as an artist doesn't let grief get in the way of cleaning her brushes, a poet takes care of her pens. And she will come back to the page, and she will see 1 more sentence in her friend's hand waiting for her. "What makes you think we're done writing, Rach?" And suddenly, all the details will matter again. Sorry, folks.
I think we were all headed in that direction, right?
It helped that the bunny came and nudged my knee while I was in the middle of that last section. Thank you very much. I'm
Thank you.
honored to be able to share those stories with you.
Lovely work. Wow. Another great program, man. Week after week, very different authors, different stories, but real synchronicity.
Quantum entanglement to them.
Quantum entanglements, yeah, non-locality.
Just so
Serious shit, man.
so human and so kind.
Yeah, yeah, really beautiful work, both of you. Thank you so much. Laura, we're so lucky that we get to do this every week, you know, and I hope all of you out there feel the same way, you know. So I want to thank our authors, Lora Gray, Nicole J. LeBoeuf, for joining us this week at Story On. Next week, we have another Gray. We have April Gray, no apparent relation. April Gray is Grey as opposed to this evening's Lora Gray, Gray. We have April Gray next week and KG Anderson. So please come on back. And meanwhile, stay safe, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we'll see you soon. Good night, everybody. Thank you.